From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Battling back against pesky pests.
They go in field, they take a picture, and in real time it tells which insect it is.
How a new app may hold more answers for farmers, as some farmers battle drought and dryness to bring in the harvest.
You know, just their corn just lost it and it's toast.
Other producers are hunkered down, riding out a catastrophic storm.
We haven't even begun to feel the wrath of Hurricane Ian.
We're tracking the latest on Hurricane Ian right now on AgDay. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Happening right now, Hurricane Ian is pummeling the state of Florida. The hurricane shifting slightly south of Tampa Bay before gaining speed with winds topping 155 miles per hour. Slamming into southwestern Florida between Venice Beach and Fort Myers is a potentially deadly Category 4 hurricane just shy of a Category 5. Now moving over central Florida, officials warning the storm is continuing to pack winds and rains that will cause catastrophic floods and life-threatening storm surge.
It's not just the rise of the water from the storm surge, it's the breaking waves on top of it that are going to be driven by those 155-mile-an-hour winds. Those waves can destroy buildings and basically lay a foundation to bear down to the slab. And that's just not a situation you're going to survive in.
And here's just a taste of the damage already caused by Ian. The storm causing a nationwide blackout in Cuba on Tuesday, and now Florida dealing with mass power outages. We're also keeping an eye on the phosphate markets as Hurricane Ian moves further inland. Florida is home to Mosaic. Its corporate headquarters are in Tampa. The company mines phosphate and potash, turning them into fertilizers. Now it says North America phosphate operations make up about 50% of the country's granular phosphate fertilizer and 12% of the global supply. The company saying in a tweet that it started prepping its facilities for the storm last week, and it says its employees in downtown Tampa and other Florida locations are working remotely, and it will alert customers of any impact to services. Now there's concern any disruptions to the fertilizer supply could cause already high food prices from inflation to push even higher. And as we've been reporting, Hurricane Ian poses a big problem to Florida's citrus production. Now it's reported 90% of the state's citrus belt is at risk. The University of Florida says on its website strong winds alone can blow fruit off the trees, but tree damage from the winds and 10 to 20 inches of rain could be the most severe. Orange juice futures surging as much as 5.5% to $1.92 a pound midweek. Prices were already elevated due to citrus greening and earlier bad weather in Florida and Brazil. Now, one disaster modeler is already predicting that damage and economic losses in all of Florida could reach up to $70 billion, which would rank Ian as the 8th costliest U.S. hurricane. Crude oil futures gaining back some ground due to the hurricane after hitting 9-month lows earlier in the week. Now, crude oil futures pushing back above $80 a barrel on Wednesday. Oil and gas operators evacuated 12 platforms in the Gulf of Mexico, shutting down 11% of the area's crude oil production and nearly 9% of the natural gas production.
Was a little bit of a shocker because the storm looks like it's going to miss most of the Gulf of Mexico fields, but caution is important for these guys. We don't want any injuries out there, so we've seen about 500,000 barrels taken offline, some natural gas. The bigger effect though from this is on the southern and southeast gasoline and fuel market. It's hard to move fuel around and keep everything going, and this kind of event disrupts a lot of the barge traffic that goes to Florida. There's no pipelines there.
Also earlier this week, in anticipation of Hurricane Ian, Chevron and BP evacuated personnel and shut production at some of their platforms in the Gulf of Mexico. Now, BP is working to redeploy offshore personnel after determining conditions are safe to return. So the market impact should be short-lived. So where does Ian move after hitting Florida? Meteorologist Andrew Whitmire has the latest track. Andrew.
And we continue to track Hurricane Ian today as it again continues to work its way across Florida, and eventually this will work its way up along parts of the Carolinas. Here's a look at our flooding potential for today as it's going to inundate parts of central Florida continuing on, as well as parts of northeastern Florida, again already kind of changing the landscape down across parts of southwestern Florida from that hurricane as it did make landfall yesterday afternoon. And as we go forward into today and even into tomorrow, we're going to start to see these bands of heavier rain beginning to work its way up along the Carolina coastlines there, even across parts of southeastern Georgia. Could be facing some heavy rainfall potential. And here's how it looks on a future track here. The future radar depicting again those heavier rain bands beginning to increase across the Carolina coastlines as early as Thursday evening, and that will continue to inundate inland a little bit up across parts of Virginia and as parts of West Virginia as well, dealing with some of those pockets of some heavier rain. We'll take a full picture of this future track as well as take a look at your rest of your Ag Day forecast coming up.
Harvest progress is running a bit ahead of normal in South Dakota at around 9% complete on corn and soybeans. As Ag Day's Michelle Rook reports, the continued dry conditions are pushing the harvest along.
Harvest is already underway here in parts of South Dakota like the southeast due to dry conditions, but early yield results have been disappointing. Doug Hansen combined some early soybeans that yielded well below his farm averages.
These two fields ran in the low 40s, and that would be at least 15 bushel off of our normal.
The soybeans were short with the driest conditions in his area since 2012.
We were 11.5 inches behind normal for the growing season.
Tim Ostrom has also harvested some dryland corn with yields that are down nearly 50%.
It's really a tough year. You know, we're talking 90, it should be 180. That's, on a field average.
Fortunately, because Ostrom could harvest the corn early, he got a better price, which will offset some of the lower production. And his yields are better than others in his area.
I've heard of guys being zeroed out. You know, their corn just lost it and it's toast.
So those farmers will rely on crop insurance and look ahead to next year. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for Ag Day.
Should you store or sell your grain this harvest season? We'll discuss that next, coming up in analysis. And later, solving pest problems by first pulling out your smartphone. See what researchers are working on in Iowa, in the country. All of that trouble on the West Coast pushed ships to unload containers at ports out east. Now that's according to the latest data. The Port of New York and New Jersey outpaced their California competitors in August, claiming the title of busiest container port in the U.S. The East Coast Complex reported nearly 850,000 20-foot equivalent units last month. That's up nearly 8% year over year. The nation's largest ports in Los Angeles and Long Beach have seen volumes cool after a record-breaking start to 2022. Harvest time is here, and if you're still on the fence when it comes to whether to store or sell your grain right now, Ag Day's Michelle Rook has some advice from Jim McCormick.
Joining us with this morning's market analysis, Jim McCormick with agmarket.net. Well, as we go into harvest here, let's talk a little bit about cash basis levels. Last year, very strong. This year, are they going to hold together, Jim?
I think there's a decent shot they're going to hold together, probably a little bit better in the west than the east. The west crop is where the crop is definitely a little bit short right now, but that should be a little bit supportive. Something we do need to keep an eye on, the river markets are a little bit struggling right now with river levels, which is affecting some of the cash markets. But in general, I'd be positive about the basis. We will see that normal fall break potentially, but the long term, when you're talking carryouts at 1.2 billion, I think the farmer, on the corn at least, the farmer is going to want to be a little bit relative strongholder.
And so you think we're going to see a little more storage than we did last year right at harvest, or is there going to be selling off the combine again because we don't have a lot of carry in the market?
Right now, I think it's going to be an interesting story. I think early on, if the prices hang up here, you get corn hanging up near closer to the $7 cash market, beans up near the closer high, mid to upper 14s. I think you see a lot of producers willing to sell right out of the field. But if this market does slide kind of with the macro weakness and we get a pullback corn and corn slides back down closer towards 6, beans get closer to 14, I think you'll see the farmer say, you know what, when I look how tight it is, you got dryness in the world, you got potential problems in South America, I'm going to be a strong holder and wait and see what the weather in South America gives us. So it's going to be a little bit of variability, I believe, in the farmer's decision making.
Yeah, and so what's your advice to them at this point?
Right now, I'd argue if you get a good basis, good, strong cash market, take advantage of it, bird it in the hand. I am worried about the macro economy. The stock market is weakening. We've taken out some of the summer lows last week, and that's a problem. If you want to play the long-term play, our recommendations, own with options. Go out and buy like spring or summer options. You mentioned there's no carry in the market, so you're not paying for the carry on these options, and you're paying just a little bit for time and see what the weather gives us. But the bird in the hand, I think, is what you want to take this year with the uncertainties on the macro front.
I appreciate your insight. That is Jim McCormick with agmarket.net. More Ag Day coming up.
To contact Jim McCormick at Ag Market, call 844-4AG-MARKET or visit their website at www.agmarket.net. Ag Day is brought to you by MetLife Investment Management's Agricultural Finance Group. MetLife Investment Management is positioned to help you grow your business with a competitive farm, ranch, and agribusiness loan. To learn more, visit investments.metlife.com/agriculture.
Welcome back. Taking a look at really some of the latest information we know about Hurricane Ian, Andrew. As we look at kind of the rainfall estimate, we've been talking about the potential for flooding. You've got 18 inches plus of rain on here. That's significant.
It is significant. And again, in parts of southwestern Florida, the landscape has already been changed from Hurricane Ian. And now this is going to continue to track its way up around Orlando, up around Jacksonville, Florida. And eventually this hurricane will bring a lot of heavy rainfall to parts of the Carolinas. And again, a lot of purple showing up there with that 12 to 18 inch plus route there, including Orlando, and this will eventually work its way up towards Daytona Beach as well for some more inundated, catastrophic flooding for parts of Florida. Meanwhile, we expand this outward to go up along the Carolina coastlines there, as well as parts of Virginia and West Virginia. You're going to be inundated with several inches of water. Luckily, though, there is kind of a trough here, and that's going to protect much of the Ohio and Tennessee river valleys here and kind of keep this sandwiched more along the Atlantic coastline. Walking through this on the future radar, again, you will see some of those heavier bands working its way along the Carolina coastline for the rest of Thursday. And then as we head towards tomorrow for Friday, we're going to continue to see some of those heavier bands working their way a little bit further inland. In fact, we could get some moisture as far north as maybe Cincinnati could pick up at maybe an isolated shower or two. Meanwhile, we will see some of that cloud deck from what will likely be the remnants of Hurricane Ian here as we go throughout parts of the Great Lakes area. Looking at our 10-day rainfall forecast, again, outside of that heavier rainfall that will be situated across the Atlantic coastline here, we'll be watching a few scattered systems that will bring some scattered moisture to parts of the Four Corners as well as parts of the Intermountain West. And again, the one thing protecting us, the rest of the country, from what will be left of Hurricane Ian is this trough here. That's going to kind of keep that system off towards our south and east across parts of the Carolinas, parts of Georgia and Florida. Meanwhile, we'll be watching this upper level ridge out across parts of the Plain States, so that will continue to build eastward, and that will provide much of the country with quiet weather as an area of high pressure begins to kind of inundate parts of the area as we go throughout that midweek forecast. That's it for a look around the country. Let's take a look a little bit closer to home with your Ag Day Select Cities. Hilton Head, South Carolina, tropical storm warning tracking Ian. PM heavy rain showers and thunderstorms, gusty winds will begin to increase. High 74 degrees. We'll go over to Lincoln, Nebraska, mostly sunny and breezy. And looking at Doris, California, sunny, high 68.
We've been talking lately about record beef exports, but could that soon be changing? We'll discuss it next. And later, keeping pests out of your fields may soon start by pulling out your smartphone.
Ag Day, brought to you by Rumensin. Rumensin's quality, consistency, and efficiency make it the right choice for your cattle operation. Rumensin, trusted by generations.
Meat exports hit a record pace last year. While the beef side got off to a roaring start, the U.S. Meat Export Federation says there are some signs of possible headwinds for exports the rest of this year. A big issue, currencies. USMEF says beef exports hit $1 billion 6 out of the last 7 months, but the latest export report did show a slowdown. Now there are sharp fluctuations in some of the world's major currencies, including the US dollar surging to its highest level in 20 years on Monday. Now that's injecting concern about the global economic outlook and what a higher dollar could mean for the price of ag products shipped overseas.
I tend to kind of downplay the currency impact, except for this time. Because when you have historic moves, Going back to the Asian financial crisis in the case of the yen, not touching that 145 mark since 1998, that sends off warnings as why are these currencies moving the way they are? What is that telling us? So kind of the deeper story, not only does it make our product more expensive for the Japanese consumer, but also what is this saying about the different economies? And it raises questions more than answers in my mind.
Now, she adds it's not a guarantee beef exports will see a sharp drop since global beef supplies are expected to remain tight and Brazil's currency is holding against the U.S. dollar. Now, it looks like a proposed billion-dollar beef processing facility is once again looking for a new possible home. Meeting Place reporting both Rapid City, South Dakota and Cheyenne, Wyoming are now no longer in the running for the plant. However, the company behind the facility, Western Legacy Development, says the plant is still on track to break ground next year. The president and CEO of the company saying, quote, "We have to negotiate with municipalities and they move on their own timeline. In some cases, they are waiting on federal funding to be able to work to scale with us," end quote. Getting rid of those pesky pests and a new app could soon be your go-to in the field when it comes to solving pest problems in the country.
Closed captioning on AgDay is brought to you by BASF. BASF, helping you do the biggest jobs on Earth.
It didn't seem as if pests were a major problem this year. It was 2021 that grasshoppers, armyworms, and others really ate into yields. But as Farm Journal's Time Morgan reports, artificial intelligence could soon change the game for farmers, not only trying to identify pests, but creating a plan to attack them.
In fields across Iowa, pests are on the prowl year after year.
It is first of a kind in the sense we are trying to cater the needs of farmer by putting these management practices or strategies linked with insect detection.
And as pests continue to be a problem, a smartphone app could soon detect and diagnose on the spot.
This is not just an identification app. It will give them management practices too, how to control if it is a pest, and if it's a beneficial, they don't have to do any control.
The goal is to make the app user-friendly for farmers to help make pest management simpler as well.
They go in field, they take a picture, and in real time it tells which insect it is. It is a beneficial insect or it's a harmful insect. And it also gives them scientific name and common name of insect.
Able to already identify 2,000 pests today, their work is far from over.
Early next year, we will be able to identify around 4,000 insect pests, which is a huge number.
And it will do so through the power of artificial intelligence.
We use a concept called deep learning, right, which is a subset of artificial intelligence, where we collect these images and we pass it through a network, if you will, and the network is essentially extracting out different kinds of features of these of the images and then making a decision on which insect class it belongs to.
Doubling the amount of insects it can detect can only be done through millions of images.
I think the large amount of data that we have been collecting, both from sensors, from images, from drones, and from citizen science, has provided a wonderful opportunity for us to train new kinds of artificial intelligence models on this data so that we can facilitate decision support and enable farmers to do what they do better, faster, in an easier way.
While creating an app like this sounds simple, all the data can be noisy.
Different people use different kinds of cameras, different people use different kinds of phones at different locations, at different resolutions. So how do you account for all those things while you design an insect detection app is something that we have to deal with.
Another challenge, the sheer amount of data, with some pests having 100,000 images, others maybe just 20.
There are some beetles that look very, very similar, but they actually belong to different classes. So how do you distinguish between two similar looking images, but they actually belong to wildly different classes, where one class could be a beneficial pest insect and other class could be actually a pest, perhaps an invasive species.
The app will help farmers solve pest problems not only today, but also tomorrow.
We don't know about these new crops which insect pests or diseases can be a problem. So if we have this library of insect pests and we can use the smartphone app to identify timely and mitigate, I think this will be a game changer for sure in future.
And as these researchers say, there's still a lot of work to be done. This technology could soon harvest solutions across the U.S.
So this is one of the things where artificial intelligence, data science, and the large amount of data that we're collecting actually all come together in coming up with these products that actually make sense and might have a good impact on the end user.
All right, thanks, Ty. And that's all the time we have this morning. Sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day and fun.